Armed police! Stay where you are! Armed police!
St. Helens, June 2020. A man walks home on a quiet street. It's late. The sky's heavy. The air dead still. Nothing feels wrong. Until it does. A shadow steps from the dark. No words. No warning. Just a splash. Not water. Not paint. Acid. It hits his face. The pain is instant. White hot. Unimaginable. His skin burns away. His screams tear through the silence. The attacker vanishes into the night. He never saw who did it. And soon, he'll never see again. This wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. This was ordered. Cold. Calculated. Paid for. The police called it a random attack. A dead end. Until they found something. A single thread in a hidden world. A message. A price. A plan so brutal it rewrites what you think you know about crime. This is a story of fear. Of violence for hire. Of a ghost who sells pain, and almost got away with it. You think you know how this ends? You don't. Hit like, subscribe, and brace yourself. Because this story doesn't just break the rules, it burns them to the ground. Walk with me for a minute. Down a narrow side street in Kirkdale, Liverpool. It's late. The air's damp. Windows are dark. But in the corners, people are still watching. Not for the police, for him. Jonathan Gordon. He wasn't a name you said out loud. Not unless you had a reason, and no one wanted one. Gordon wasn't a drug dealer or a thief. He was something else entirely. An enforcer. The man they called when someone needed to bleed, or worse, disappear behind a curtain of pain. He worked for the Delhi mob. Not some loose-knit crew, but a proper criminal network. Structured. Ruthless. Gordon wasn't at the top, but he was the one who made sure orders were followed. The threat that turned warnings into consequences. Jonathan Gordon, at the age of 34, was considered one of the most dangerous men in the city. Someone who could be hired to carry out horrific acts of violence, all for the right price. What made Gordon even more terrifying was his method of communication. He wasn't just operating in plain sight. Gordon made use of the encrypted EncroChat messaging system, an anonymous platform widely used by organized crime groups across Europe. His handle on this network was Valued Bridge, a name that would soon become synonymous with murder, violence, and terror. Through EncroChat, Gordon was directly in contact with his criminal superiors, including a mysterious crime boss who went by the name Ace Prospect. This boss, behind a secure digital screen, would hire Gordon to carry out some of the most vile acts of violence imaginable. These weren't just simple street altercations. No, Ace Prospect and Gordon were in the business of causing long-term, life-altering injuries. Gordon specialized in acid. Yeah, acid. A bottle, a face, and a few seconds to change someone's life forever. He charged £6,000 for a basic hit. But if you wanted the victim permanently blinded, the fee went up to £10,000. Just numbers to him. Business. Routine. This business of blinding enemies for money was not only sickening but shockingly efficient for Gordon. His connections through the EncroChat network allowed him to operate like a mercenary, carrying out dangerous contracts for his mysterious and influential bosses. It was not just about the money, however. Gordon was a man who reveled in his status as an enforcer, someone willing to do whatever it took to further the power of the Delhi mob gang. He had access to guns, grenades, whatever the job required, and he used them. Not recklessly, but with purpose. He was calm, precise, and he believed he was untouchable. But no one is. Not forever. And once you start following the evidence, really digging into the messages, the weapons, the trails of blood, you start to see it clearly. Jonathan Gordon thought he controlled the fear. But he forgot. Fear leaves footprints. To understand Jonathan Gordon, you have to understand the way he worked. Jonathan Gordon wasn't just violent, he was precise. Everything he did was calculated, brutal, and sold to the highest bidder. Gordon's specialty was carrying out horrific acid attacks designed not just to injure, but to blind, disfigure, and destroy lives permanently. These weren't random street assaults. These were contracts, organized, premeditated, and executed with chilling professionalism. And he didn't work alone. He had a crew. Men like Dylan Johnston and Stephen Wissett, willing accomplices in his campaign of violence. One of the most disturbing examples came on the night of April 14, 2019. St. Helens, Merseyside. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening. Lee Deacon, a father, stepped outside his house to grab a phone charger from his car. Simple. Thoughtless. Routine. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that someone had been watching him. Waiting. Jonathan Gordon. An enforcer with a reputation for extreme violence. That night, he wasn't there to send a message. He was there to maim. From the shadows, Gordon struck. He hurled a bottle of acid directly into Lee's face, no hesitation, no warning. The liquid splashed across Lee's skin and into his eyes. Within seconds it began to eat away at flesh. His vision dissolved in pain. Blinding, instant, permanent. Screaming, Lee stumbled toward the house. His girlfriend, hearing the chaos, rushed to help. But what she saw was a man already falling apart, skin melting, eyes swelling shut, mouth burned. The stench of chemicals and ammonia clinging to the air. Inside, Lee tried to flush the acid from his face. He splashed water, desperate for relief. But it was too late. Layers of skin came away in his hands. He later said, "My skin felt like jelly." In the aftermath, he feared he'd forget what his children looked like. That if he ever saw them again, they would be older, strangers to his damaged eyes. He survived. But survival came at a cost. Dozens of procedures. Long nights. A future built around partial vision and permanent trauma. The physical scars were deep, but the emotional ones ran even deeper. Still, amid the pain, Lee helped investigators. He identified Gordon in an ID parade, placing a name to the face burned into his memory. That decision cracked the case wide open. While Lee Deacon was fighting for his life and his sight, Jonathan Gordon was still active on EncroChat, making arrangements for more attacks. Almost a year later, on April 6, 2020, he was tasked with carrying out another acid attack, this time on a man in Warrington. He was joined by Johnston and Wissett. Their plan was simple. Drive to the target's house, throw acid in his face, and disappear. But this time, they spotted CCTV cameras in the area. Too risky. They aborted the plan and left. The very next day, April 7th, they tried again. But as they approached the property, police officers spotted their stolen Ford Fiesta. The crew fled the scene, abandoning the vehicle. But it was already too late. The police managed to seize the car. Inside the car, forensic analysis later revealed DNA belonging to Wissett and Johnston, traces that would eventually tie them directly to the crime. Despite this failure, Ace Prospect was not deterred. His message to Gordon after the failed attempt was chilling. Return and cook him. Not just hurt him, torture him. The language used in the messages made it clear that this was no longer just about violence. It was about torture, about ensuring the victim would never recover. But acid wasn't Gordon's only method of violence. As the investigation into Jonathan Gordon continued to unfold, the sheer scope of his violent crimes became clear. One of the most disturbing revelations came when law enforcement discovered that Gordon was involved in a gunfight on January 24, 2020, in the area of Wilbur Street, Walton. Messages from EncroChat between Gordon and Ace Prospect revealed that Gordon had been involved in a shooting that night. Gordon proudly sent a message to his boss casually boasting, "Let off a clip in the street," referring to his exchange of gunfire. That wasn't a metaphor. Police responded to reports of shots fired and found a door kicked in. Likely an entry to a property involved in the gun battle. In addition to this, Gordon was connected to yet another gunfight in Carisbrook Road. A bullet fired by Gordon's handgun struck the bedroom window of an elderly couple's home. May 25, 2020. Carisbrook Road, Liverpool. It's late. The streets are dead when an e-bike hums up. Jonathan Gordon's there with his Grand Power handgun, facing off with some other guy who's tooled up too. No chat, just action. Triggers pull. Bangs rip through the night. Bullets flying wild. One slug from Gordon's piece smashes a nearby window. Glass raining down. The e-bike bloke peels off and Gordon's legging it. Gun gone. Lost in the fray. No one was killed that night. but it was a near miss. A quiet neighborhood had turned into a war zone. Later, Gordon snapped a photo of a newspaper article reporting on the shooting and sent it to Ace Prospect, his hand visible in the frame. That single image would become key evidence, linking him to the scene. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Gordon remained defiant. He continued to carry out violent acts on behalf of Ace Prospect, even as the walls began to close in around him. On March 20th, 2020, Gordon and his accomplice Dylan Johnston were involved in a plot to carry out a shooting in Reaper Close, Warrington. The plan was simple: drive by the property and shoot out the windows. A classic drive-by attack. But even as Gordon and Johnston carried out their shooting, law enforcement was on their tail. They managed to obtain crucial phone records linking the two men to the crime. Further forensic analysis revealed that the bullets from the Reaper Close attack were the same as those used in the earlier shooting on Wilbur Street. This connected the two events, further solidifying the case against Gordon and Johnston. And there was more. In addition to these violent plots, the authorities uncovered another chilling message in the EncroChat records. Gordon and his boss Ace Prospect had discussed a potential acid attack on a new target, this time in Blackpool. Ace Prospect had instructed Gordon, saying he needs a good leader on him, referring to the amount of acid that should be thrown at the victim. But this time, the COVID lockdown interrupted the plan. Empty streets meant police presence was too heavy. The risk was too high, even for Gordon. Still, even as plans fell apart, fate had other plans for Gordon. Inside the stolen Ford Fiesta used during the Warrington attempt, Merseyside police found vital evidence linking him and his accomplices to the crime. Wissett's DNA was found on a Lucozade bottle in the car, and Johnston's DNA was found on gloves inside the vehicle. Piece by piece, a case was forming, linking Gordon, Johnston, and Wissett to a series of acid attacks, firearm conspiracies, and attempted murders across Liverpool and beyond. Gordon thought he was untouchable, but every message, every job, every drop of acid or bullet fired left behind a trace, and those traces were beginning to lead straight back to him. Every criminal operation has a crack in the foundation. For Jonathan Gordon, that crack came from the shadows, EncroChat. In May 2020, a massive international law enforcement effort quietly flipped the script. The NCA, working in collaboration with Merseyside Police and Cheshire Police, had successfully infiltrated the EncroChat network, gathering messages and data that exposed Gordon's extensive criminal activities. From his involvement in multiple acid attacks to the shootings and gunfights, it was clear that Gordon was not just a member of the Delhi mob. He was one of its most violent and dangerous operatives. They didn't just monitor the messages. They recorded everything. Live. Unfiltered. Gordon didn't know it yet, but his most private conversations, his negotiations, plans, prices, even photos, were being watched in real time. And those messages were damning. Every message added weight to the case. But digital evidence wasn't enough. Investigators started closing in physically. Surveillance was stepped up. Cars were tracked. Gordon's movements were logged. And then came the break. April 7th, 2020. After Gordon, Johnston, and Wissett fled the scene of a failed acid attack in Warrington, they abandoned a stolen black Ford Fiesta. They thought they'd vanished without a trace. They were wrong. The walls were closing in. A message from Ace Prospect landed. Short. Cold. Return and cook him. It was an order to finish the job, to go back and make sure the target didn't survive the next attempt. But by then, police were ready. Raids were planned. Arrests executed. Phones were seized. Gordon's encrypted device, a trove of secrets, was in custody. It was full of messages, images, and details tying him directly to acid attacks, firearm discharges, and attempted murders across Liverpool, Warrington, and Blackpool. The digital mask had slipped. The man behind the handle, valued bridge, was now fully exposed. And for the first time, Jonathan Gordon had run out of places to hide. The trial began. Jonathan Gordon, Dylan Johnston, Stephen Wissett. 3 names that had once echoed in the shadows of Liverpool's underworld, now spoken aloud in courtrooms flooded with fluorescent light and silent judgment. The prosecution laid out a mountain of evidence: surveillance, forensics, Encrypted messages pulled from the cracks of EncroChat. Victim testimonies that didn't flinch. All of it pointed to one thing: a calculated, organized campaign of violence. Gordon didn't flinch either. He was convicted on 3 counts of conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, 2 counts of possessing a firearm with intent to endanger life, and 1 count of conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent to endanger life. Judge David Aubrey QC called it what it was: chilling in the extreme. He spoke to the courtroom, and to the city watching from outside, about the cruelty, the inhumanity, the utter disregard Gordon showed for human life. Acid to the face, guns in the street, people hurt, permanently, for money. There was no remorse, no second thoughts, and there would be no second chances. Gordon was handed a life sentence, with a minimum of 24 years and 8 months before parole would even be considered. The judge was clear: society had to be protected from him. But Gordon wasn't the only one. Dylan Johnston, his right hand in the chaos, was sentenced to 27 years, an extended term with 4 more on license. Convicted of conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent to endanger life, and conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm. He had pulled strings in the background, helped orchestrate the violence, and the law caught up with him too. Then there was Stephen Wissett. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm. His role was smaller, but not small. 12 years behind bars. Enough to mark him as more than just a bystander. He was part of it. And he paid the price. With those convictions, a violent chapter in Liverpool's history began to close. The Delhi mob gang, once whispered about, once feared, had lost its core. The streets they thought they controlled were quieter now. Not healed, but quieter. Gordon thought he could move in the shadows. Blind, burn, terrify. Leave no trace. But the chaos he caused left trails. And the pain he inflicted left people who couldn't forget. His world of fire and silence was over, locked away. But make no mistake, the damage remains. The scars, the trauma, the fear. Those don't disappear when the cell door slams shut. And here's the truth. In crime, nothing stays hidden forever. No matter how encrypted the messages, how silent the victims, how dark the nights, truth has a way of surfacing. Gordon's story is a warning about how far ambition can twist, about how easy it is to lose your humanity when money becomes your god, and about the lives left shattered in the wake of that hunger. It's a reminder to communities: speak up, watch out, and never think violence is too far from your doorstep. These aren't distant monsters. They live next door, ride the same buses, walk the same streets. In organized crime, there are no happy endings, just consequences, and the echo they leave behind. If you want more raw, real stories like this, cases that expose the dark underbelly with no filter, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stay alert, stay safe. And until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.